Testing. Okay.
Oh,
That's all right.
thank you.
No worries.
Good.
So we have a couple more questions from Sasha here.
Yep.
Did you have any nicknames?
You mean for me or for other people?
For you.
For me,
Did
a
anyone
nickname.
have any pet names or nicknames? I know that my mum calls you Muzz.
That's right.
But when you were younger, did you have any people call you any nicknames?
Yes, my auntie Reen used to say, "Hey,
Hey.
hey."
Yep.
Yeah, that
Shortening
was
Hazel.
exactly. And she always said that, hey, and and it just was it just didn't notice it.
Yeah.
Now what used Harry? Did Harry have a nickname for me? No. Nicknames. I'd really have to give that some thought. I think of my closest friends, Ruby. She always used to give me my proper name. Isn't it funny how Auntie Reen, Auntie Reenie, I should say, she was Irene, and so she was always known as Reenie, and my mother used to call her Reen, and my mother was Ida, and Auntie Reenie used to say Ide. You know, she would shorten everything. She would shorten everything. But for my name, I don't know if Ruby used to call me something. I know at the when I worked at the AMP, sometimes I used to go with a group of we were a little clique, Joan and Betty and Heather, and sometimes we'd call one another by our surnames. Yep. She might say, "Hey Glover," and I'd say Cotsy. Yeah. that was her surname, and Faulkner, and so on and so forth. But there was no ongoing. Mum used to call me Pet, and oh dear, she was a lovely mother. It was usually Pet. Yeah, that's Dad. Dad never bothered calling me anything. Gran used to. Gran never had a nickname for me. No, I didn't have a.
Did Grandpop, like Dick, ever have any pet names for you, or?
Not my I didn't have a grandfather. I only had a great-grandfather. And I can't remember, while I was only a little girl, he must have died when I was very young.
What about your husband, Dick?
Pardon?
Your husband, Dick.
Dick. Yeah. Oh, Dick. Yes, that's right. He and his friend, can't remember the friend's name. He used to call me Gert. Gert, and Gert and what was it? Oh, look, I haven't thought about that for ages. Because Bruce was, that's right, Dick and Bruce, they were the two cobbers. They used to play tennis. They were a good tennis. They were always playing comp. They were good tennis players. And he was going out with a girl named Claire. Bruce and Claire, and so they and it was Dick and Hazel. Now they used to call. I'm just trying to think. Both of them cotton on to. Well, Dick. I can't remember Dick calling me Gert, but he is. Oh, no, when we were together, he'd say Gert, and they had a name for Claire, a horrible name for Claire too. I don't know. Gert and Can't think what it is. Look, I'll probably remember it. I've never thought about that. I can't remember ever thinking about that, because they belong to the years before we were married.
Right.
And
so how did Gert come about?
I don't know. They were looking for two horrible names to call us, just to be.
Scallywags.
Just to get us riled up, and of course it never worried me. I couldn't care what people called me. Look, it was on the tip of my tongue a minute ago, and when I'm just sitting thinking, it'll roll off, because we were linked together, Claire and Bruce they were both Catholics, by the way, and not that that's got anything to do with it, but they did happen to be both from Catholic families, and therefore they were married in the Catholic Church. Claire, she had a lovely nature. She's just a beautiful, beautiful girl. But that marriage didn't last. And she was left with a couple of little kiddies. And Bruce, evidently, he just went off into the wide blue yonder. And she had it hard, because she wasn't trained. She was she worked in one of the big stores in town. She was served over the counter, so she had skills. She had people skills. She was lovely to serve you, and she worked for a firm called Horden Brothers down in Pitt Street, and we used to. The four of us used to go out a lot together, and but I can't remember what they used to call. Both of them used to call. It was a case of good and. No, it's eluding me. I'll have to think. No problem. I'll have to think about that, because I know that I know it. Yeah. And this I do remember. Because Dick was a great swimmer. He was on the Air Force team. That was the creme de la creme of the swimmers, and he was the best swimmer that they had. Yeah. And they went down to the big baths at Coogee one time. It was an evening that was put on for the forces. Bruce was, of course, in the army. He was an army fellow, and he wasn't swimming. He wasn't a swimmer, but Dick was swimming with the Air Force team, and it was very competitive. And Dick was winning. He was winning all sorts of things. He was he was a very powerful swimmer. And so after when the night was over, we went next door to the baths was a milk bar or something, and a coffee shop, something you could have refreshments, and so we all piled in there, and we were having a sundae, one of those piled up ice creamy things to celebrate, and after we'd finished, it was a lovely night, and we enjoyed the swimming. We were enjoying our little bit of a supper, and we just got ourselves ready. We were going out to just go home Saturday night, and all of a sudden, when we got outside the shop, before we parted company, Bruce said to me, Bruce knew, because Dick and I were on the verge of being married. I think our wedding day was just up ahead. Bruce they weren't getting married, but we were. And Bruce suddenly produced, out of his pocket, he produced half a dozen apostle spoons. He pinched from the cafe. Oh. That we'd been eating and they were those teaspoons were like the apostles. The handle was like a figure. Yes. And I nearly expired. I thought, this is stolen goods. Yeah. I did,
Contraband.
absolutely. But Bruce would not have turned a hair about. He had no qualms about that. He said, his one rejoinder was, well, those ice creams cost us enough, and this is we deserve these, or so. That he said something like that night, and I thought, how awful.
That was his justification for stealing.
It was his justification, and I thought that is disgraceful.
That's right.
So I thought that's the sort of person. It was just as if I got an inkling that he had no scruples at all, and so I thought, well, I don't know what happened to the spoons. I think I got one. I think Dick took one or something, but. So we got a bit of the contraband, but every time I looked at it, I don't know what happened to that spoon. It's gone anyway. But every time I looked at that, I thought of that night, and I thought, my goodness me, it's just awful.
It's funny how people think they have a right to do that, isn't it? I mean,
exactly.
And his justification is completely fallacious anyway, because no one forced him to go in and buy those ice creams, and he knew full well what the price is before buying them. And
exactly. There's no excuse.
You know, it's really.
Oh, look! You can't fool people. We're not that stupid.
It's almost like I think they make up these justifications to make themselves feel a bit better, but they probably know deep down that that's not actually a true justification.
Well, surely they would be honest with themselves and say
right.
that was a pretty mongrel thing to do, finally. But he had no qualms. I think he was so pleased with himself that he got away with it.
Right.
If the arm of the law had come on him and if someone had been watching him and had the power, they could have, there could have been a confrontation, but there wasn't. And so that was the sort of person he was, and so later, after he'd done he hadn't done the right thing by Claire, I thought, like he was a son in a lot of brothers. They had no sisters. It was their parents had just produced boys, and so he there's something good about being in a mixed family. There's something that gives you a balance, I think. You've got a sister. I think I had a brother, and somehow you get a balance. But they were, I suppose, in a family of about six. There was about 6 boys in this family, and they would be vying with each other. There'd be the one, and he was one of the eldest ones, the elder ones, and there's a certain pride in doing smarty things. Oh, that's smart. It's giving yourself an accolade. You're smart on the rest, and so on and so forth. So I'm not altogether surprised, greatly shocked and greatly grieved when he walked out on Claire. It's not as if she was just so lovely and so gentle. She wasn't, there wasn't a mean bone in her body. She was very, very sweet-natured. And she had a lovely singing voice too. Beautiful singing voice, but very, very humble, just humble. And they lived in Paddington. She lived in Paddington. And she's one of a big family, mixed family, and I've often wondered what happened to her finally. I hope she remarried. She is so worthy of having a good husband and having a happy life. She deserved it. She was solid gold. One of those very rare people that you can just admire for her qualities and her love and her loyalty, all the goodies. She had all the goodies.
It's always heartbreaking when there's someone like that, and then they end up with the wrong person who doesn't appreciate that or takes advantage of their kindness or. Absolutely. That's it in a nutshell. And it is a heartache to have to stand by and see that. I could shake Bruce really if I was ever near him, just to, because I would be outraged. First of all, it was so awful. I wonder how
if she did, but look, she was such a lovely person. I'm quite sure that she would meet somebody somewhere. The Lord would sort of so work it, because she was so deserving and so beautiful. She was a nice looking girl. Wasn't it as if she was, a bit plain. She wasn't plain at all. She was just beautiful. Anyway, that's life. So now, Ben, how's our list going along?
There's 3 more questions from Sasha, and then we can wrap it up for today. There's just one from Cassie actually, so maybe if we get through those ones.
Yes, that'd be good.
And then maybe we can wrap it up for today.
Yep.
Does that sound all right?
Sounds great.
All right. So Sasha says, "Did you have a pool?"
A pool? No, I never had a pool, because living at Bondi, I used to swim in the baths there. It was just a little walk down the road, and I learned to swim in Bondi baths, and then I had the surf, I had the beach, and at school we were able to. We had in the summer we were all marched down to the baths anyway, and so we never, and our backyard wouldn't have taken a pool, but pools just weren't in those days. They just weren't in. Probably the great mansions on the North Shore might have had a built-in pool, but. And there's no such thing as rubber pools in those days. So, no, I never had a pool, never wanted a pool. And because I have always loved salt water. I don't take kindly to chlorinated water. It always affects my eyes, my ears, my nose. It affects everything. And but mainly my eyes.
Chlorine's not good for the eyes.
Oh, it's really cruel on your eyes. And so, no pools.
No pools.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this question is quite a funny one. Were there any iPods in those days? And if not, what did you do for fun?
Oh no, there were certainly no iPod. There was no mobile phones, and there was no. I'd have to tell. This is from some Sash.
Sasha, yeah.
Yes, and there was certainly no television. There was none of these gadgets that we've got now, and I've never, even now, I have had a mobile phone, and for a few years, and when it died, even now I wouldn't know what an iPod was, or what any of those things are. But certainly no, they came in later years, much later than my time of wanting stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so the answer is no, I don't. But what did I do for entertainment? Well, of course, I was fully entertained with going to the pictures, and just learning skills, learning like things like knitting. That's, to me, it was entertainment. Making jumpers, and learning to crochet, learning to sew, going. That was never that wasn't a chore. That was just enjoyment. Yes, my life was really full. I liked you listen to the radio because, as I say, there was no TV, and you just listen, and the pictures that when you went to a picture show, that was good entertainment, cheap, and that was always worth going to. Also, and Sash wouldn't know anything about this, but my dad always liked to buy tickets into the good stage shows in town, in the Royal Theatre Royal. He'd buy orchestra stall tickets, the best in the house, down the front, and for Mum and I, he would shout us even that expression, shout.
Yep.
He would pay for those seats, the very best, and we had lovely views of live performances, operas, ballet, stuff like that. So all my young life, it was full. I don't remember. I felt that I'd had a very entertaining, with hindsight, and even at the time, I just enjoyed life. It was good.
Yep.
I never longed for anything else. I thought life was rich and enjoyable, and I was a very happy child.
Good. All right. So the last question from Sasha is, who was your Year 3 teacher?
I beg your pardon?
Who was your Year 3 teacher when you were in Year 3?
Now, Year 3...
I guess she's asking...
Is that third class, or is
Yes.
that third year high school?
No, that would be third class.
Third class teacher, yes, that was Miss Boland, and she was like a hippopotamus. That was the one that used to... When I left infant school to go into third class, it wasn't in the main building of Bondi School. It was in a little portable, what they call portables, like a flimsy little building with 2 classrooms, and we had to march down there under the peppercorn trees, and then I sat. I always liked to sit at the front because I had a bit of an eye problem. I had to wear glasses when I was quite young, and so, but when Miss Boland came across, because this room wasn't this classroom was it was sort of up on piers.
Like a demountable.
It was a demountable. It could easily be taken to pieces and carted off. It was just one of those, and she used to come in, and she was so big. She was absolutely the fattest woman I have. Well, for a child, I'd never seen so. I've never seen a woman or a man as fat as she was. She was short and dumpy and very, very wide, and she had an aggressive face, and she would come lumbering across the room, and the floorboards would shake, and she and she was bad tempered, she seemed to be always picking on you, and if you did the wrong thing, she'd bawl you out in front of the class. I remember really, I hate to say the word, but I really disliked intensely rather than hate.
Yep.
I really did, and she had a little cane. She wouldn't. I mean, she didn't give you a great big whack, but she'd tap you. She'd just tap you with this little stick, and I never did any good in under her tutelage. I was so glad when I went up to 4th class. I was so glad I didn't have to repeat. Well, you didn't repeat 3rd class anyway. You'd automatically go up. But she was the most bad-tempered teacher I have ever had. And when I think of just how young I was, that was a bit cruel. There should be understanding, soft sort of women when children are little. And but she and I wasn't a naughty child. That was the whole thing. I did my best, but she made life miserable. She seemed to make life miserable for the whole class. And so, with hindsight, I wonder why she ever went in for teaching. I wonder why she was ever allowed to teach. And I wonder what the students produced for the powers that be to look at and say, oh, this class is high standard, they've had good teaching, they're knowledgeable, they've got through the curriculum. You just wonder, don't you? And so that was that was just one of those years that I didn't like school.
Sounds
And to
like
me, I was now in the big school, and so I was a bit apprehensive about my next teacher. But the teachers after that were lovely, except sixth class. So fourth and fifth were lovely, but third and sixth were nightmares because of the teacher. Because of the teacher.
It makes all the difference, doesn't it? It sounds to me
Absolutely.
Sounds like she was in the wrong job.
She was in the wrong job. She was in the wrong profession. Definitely. I don't know what profession would have suited her, honestly. Packing something just mechanical, I think, like...
Maybe working in a cake shop. She'd love that. I think.
She did all the stock.
True. It'd be an unwise employer to employ her in a cake shop by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. The cake shop would go broke though. Yeah. But one thing she could recommend, if she was working at a cake shop, she could recommend every cake that was there, because I bet she'd have tested them all, given them the tongue test. Oh,
that's
yeah.
Funny.
Okay,
Thanks
that's all Sasha was wanting to know.
Yeah, that's Sasha's questions done. So I guess so that's the only questions I have from the kids at the moment. Like I said, I've asked Ross if he can sort of ask his kids, and he hasn't got back to me yet. So maybe he'll maybe next week or whatever.
Please don't worry him, because they, I know and Nick's back again, but I don't think she's 100%, and so just don't worry about that, Ben.
I'm sure, yeah. I mean, he'll get back to me if he's got something.
No, exactly. So, now, what about Beck? What did you say about Beck?
Well, Beck's got a few, but I was thinking just to finish up with one from Cassie, actually.
Oh, right, yes.
Now, Cassie has said to me, I would love to hear the story about Annie again. Grandma used to tell me the story all the time when I was young, and I can't remember the whole story anymore.
I did tell you that. Didn't I tell you that last week, Ben?
Remind me, the story of Annie?
Yes, I'm sure I did, because I was recounting that to somebody, and I'm sure it was you.
Could have been.
You might have forgotten to tick it off.
Possibly.
Because, look, switch me off, because I'm sure that I have... Look, I'll just say it as quickly as I can.
Sure.
When the family, Annie was a beautiful little girl. Perhaps she was 4 years old. She had beautiful fair hair, beautiful big eyes. She was like a real English beauty, and she had a lovely nature. This little girl was coming out from England with her parents and her grandparents, and to come out they had to get on a boat, a big ship. And as they took them 6 or 7 weeks to come out from England to Australia, and they came round the Cape of Good Hope and came across the Indian Ocean and eventually they put in at Brisbane. They had to come in to Brisbane because they had to I don't know what sort of a boat it was, whether they had to take on cargo or something. It was essential that they came in at Brisbane, whatever Brisbane could offer them. And so they were told, all of the migrants on the ship were told to have the day off, to go ashore, stretch their legs, have a picnic, and then they had to be back on board by a certain time. And so the whole family went to this park, beautiful park in Brisbane, and they had their lunch there, they had their sandwiches and whatever, and the children they were all enjoying it. And then it was time to get back to the boat. And as they just mustered themselves together, they found, where was Annie? Annie was missing. And they searched high and low. The park was limited, and they were asking each other and other people had they seen a little fair-haired girl, and so they had to let the boat go, and they had to stay there. They had to call the police, and they found that Annie had gone into there was a big pond there full of water lilies, and little Annie thought that it was she didn't realise it was deep, and she must have probably been going in to get one of the flowers, and of course it was so deep that she drowned, and they had to drag that pond. They had to use those grappling things to drag the pond, and they found her little body, and so the family had to see. There was a big inquest, of course, and they had to have her buried, and so that was their first time on Australian soil. A terrible start, and I remember saying this. I have got a photograph of Annie, and she is absolutely like a little angel, and everybody on the boat loved her. It was the saddest news for everybody to hear about, and because she was the darling of the boat, they all just absolutely adored her, and of course her parents never got over that tragedy. It scarred their lives for the rest of their lives, and the rest of the family too. And so that was little Annie.
Yep.
End of story.
Yes, it is sad. Thank you, Grandma.
Pleasure, darling. So, now Ben, how's the list?